Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to cloud test lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
Annotation, hibernate.xml file. You have used a different XML file. And after some time, your project manager or your business team has decided, don't go with Hibernate and replace this with iBatis. Replace with iBatis. If you have written your Hibernate related beans, Hibernate configuration beans, see, you are supposed to write Hibernate configuration beans. The reason for that is you are going to integrate Spring with Hibernate. Hibernate won't work alone without use of the controller. Controller has to take care about Hibernate mappings, and controller was supposed to resolve the Hibernate configuration. Lot more stuff your Spring controller was supposed to do. So that means you need to provide all the information to your Spring controller. Hibernate is just like a module that is embedded within your Spring framework. So if you have written your Hibernate related class files within your annotation servlet.xml, then it will be like verifying all your beans. Let us say you have 40 beans, and you need to identify what are all the beans that you are supposed to remove, and you need to incorporate the new iBatis related beans. Instead of you doing all this work, just like for maintenance usage, create a separate XML file based on either data layer or service layer or web layer. Then what you can do when you want to move from Hibernate to iBatis, just remove this particular XML file and specify that I'm using annotation ibatis.xml file. So normally, whenever you are writing the XML file, let us say our servlet name is training, divide them with web layer training servlet.xml, service layer training service.xml, and data layer training-data.xml file. Okay, now we have decided that we are going to write all our Hibernate configurations in a separate XML file. Then how will inform to Spring framework about this XML? Your dispatcher servlet only loads annotation-servlet.xml. It won't load your annotation-service.xml or annotation-data.xml. No need to have the same name. You can use any kind of name for your service or data layer. Dispatcher servlet will only work on servlet.xml, and to have your service XML and data XML, you need to configure a Spring listener within your web.xml file. That is your context loader listener. This is also provided by your Spring framework only. You are not going to write this listener. You just need to specify a listener which is context loader listener, and another thing is you need to specify a context parameter with the name context config location, and the value for this is whatever the XML files that you want to configure with respect to your web content. Training-data.xml. If you have multiple, specify a comma and specify the other XML as well. Then your context loader listener will read this particular context config location parameter, and it will take the values as a list. Once after that, it will read one by one XML files and it will maintain the beans. If at all, if you didn't specify the context config location or context loader listener, it won't load your data XML or service.xml. And the second thing is, if you forgot to specify a context parameter, your context loader listener will look for application context.xml by default. Either you should have application.context.xml or else specify your actual files by using context config location parameter. Now our first step has completed. You are able to load your beans XML file. Now, what kind of a content that you are going to use within your data.xml? Your data.xml, it should contain the beans related to Hibernate mapping. Spring framework has enhanced the existing Hibernate classes, and it has added exception functionality. It has also added the additional functionality See, normally with a Hibernate, you are supposed to open the session and close the session. With Spring, it's not required for you to do any of those stuff. You can make use of a template class, which is Hibernate template, which was provided by your Spring framework. That means once you have created the Hibernate template object, you can directly go and execute the Hibernate methods, Hibernate session methods. They have just written a simple class called Hibernate template, and when you are calling Hibernate template object dot get method, let us say you are calling Hibernate template object dot save method. Hibernate template dot save method. Then at this point of time, this will create a session and it will call Hibernate save method, and finally it will return the result back to you. So it's not required for you to do all the stuff whenever you are using the Spring Hibernate template. This is just like a wrapper class around your Hibernate classes. Not only Hibernate, it has the capability of working with any of the other frameworks. Currently we are working with Hibernate, So that's why we are dealing with Hibernate template. And the second thing is, what are all the beans that we need to configure in our data.xml file? See, normally for Hibernate, we need to have hibernate.cfg.xml file and also your employee.hbm.xml file, and also we need to have one listener class which creates your session factory. This is how normally your Hibernate works. But with Spring, you no need to write your configuration file, because the configuration stuff you are going to configure along with Spring application. Spring config file. You just need to write only one employee.hbm.xml, and your listener also not required. You can make use of Spring dependency injection and retrieve the session factory. Normally in hibernate.cfg.xml, what kind of a properties that we will specify? URL, username, password, and also what is the dialect. So dialect, show SQL. So these are all some additional properties, but these are all mandatory properties for Hibernate configuration. And we need to specify what are all our mapping files. So our mapping file is employee.hbm.xml file. And if we want to use any kind of data sources, we have already discussed with data source nothing but it will maintain a pool of connections. If you want to use any kind of a data source with your Spring, either you can use basic data source, or else you can use C3PO connection pooling, or else you can use DBCP connection pooling. This basic data source, it was provided by your Spring framework itself. So that means to our Hibernate, see, you are going to create a data source. To create a data source, you need to specify all these properties. That's what we have seen while configuring on the JBoss. Once you have configured the data source, to Hibernate, don't specify the individual parameters. Just specify that you are using a data source. And also you need to specify your Hibernate mapping files, and also you need to specify the additional properties, what kind of a dialect that we want to use, and also if you want some other additional parameters also. So to configure all these steps, Spring has provided one more Hibernate implemented class. That means to that particular bean, you are going to specify all these parameters. Hey, this is my data source, and this is the mapping file, and these are the additional properties. And your Spring Hibernate class will create the data source, and it will read the hbm.xml, and it will apply all the properties, and finally it will create the session factory. So once it has created the session factory, Once it has created the session factory, see, we need to have a session factory in our DAO class, or else how can we execute our DAO method or Hibernate method? To provide that, in your DAO class, create a session factory property and provide setters and getters for that, and you Spring framework will use dependency injection and loads See, normally how we'll configure our bean properties. We'll just specify property name value pair, and the value will be set by using our setter method. This is also just like the same way, but here session factory will get created by Spring framework dynamically, and it will provide that to you by using session factory property. Once you got the session factory property, here we are not going to open a session or close a session. You just need to use Hibernate template. Hibernate template requires the parameter as session factory. Once you have passed the parameter, you can just execute the methods like template dot save method or template dot get method. This Hibernate template, it has just implemented all the methods from your Hibernate session interface. Once after retrieving the data, no need to close the session. If you want, let us take a look at our Hibernate template API. You can see that Hibernate template, which accepts a session factory for its constructor, and you can see that all the methods, just like how you have session, DAO methods, delete all, evict method, execute, find method, criteria method, named parameters, get method, load, persist, save or update method. Just like how you have the methods, DAO methods within your session, your Hibernate template will also consist of all those methods, but it provides some additional functionality. It is just like a wrapper around your session object. So now let us go and write a annotation data.xml file. Before that, you need to configure your annotation data.xml within your web.xml file. So to configure, you need to have a context loader listener. Here you can see that web context loader listener, and you need to specify the initialization parameter context to config location. Currently, it was supposed to be specified with respect to your web content, webinf/annotation-data.xml. That is my data.xml file. Now go to your annotation data.xml. Here you can see that we are configuring first the data source, and I am using the DBCP basic data source. DBCP is database connection pooling mechanism, and I am using the class name as basic data source, and I am passing all our properties that are required to configure the data source. What are all the classes required? Sorry, properties: driver class name, URL, username, and password. Once after that, this will create a data source and stores the data source value in ID called my data source. The next step is create the session factory. To create a session factory, it was supposed to be done by Spring Framework, but not by Hibernate. So here you can see that Spring Framework.orm.hibernate3.local session factory bean. So this is the bean which will create your session factory. And here for session factory, I don't want to pass the normal parameters. See, this is just like your configuration.xml file. For cfg.xml, you need to provide all the properties, and also you need to provide what is the dialect and what are all the additional parameters that are required, and you need to specify your hbm.xml. Do we have to mention bean class name? Yes, that is a must, because your bean class, this is responsible for creating your session factory by loading all these properties. You can just Google what is the name of the class file that will perform Hibernate loading for Spring. It's not possible for anyone to remember the name of the classes. You can just Google whenever it is required. So for your session factory, I am referring to the data source. So my data source, you can see that name value pair. I can just refer to any other bean. We have already seen the reference in last class. And once after that, you need to specify one more property. The name is mapping resources. You can have a number of mapping resources, employee.hbm.xml, or you can have address.hbm.xml. We'll discuss about that, Vijay, later. Employee.hbm.xml or address.hbm.xml, we can contain several mapping files. So that means for the property mapping resources, it is not like a single value, it is just like a list of values. The list of values can be specified by using list property. So within your property, you can specify a list, and here you can add any number of values. So I have added only one. You can have any number of hbm.xml files. That's the reason it was specified as a list.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website h2kinfosys.com. On our website h2kinfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.